Who was I? I was Long Chun. I was a peerless pill god who looked down upon the world and defied the heavens. But I was also a useless loser, a man who lived off his wife and couldn't even cultivate. Long Chun. The name echoed in my mind, but everything was a mess. A wave of sharp pain shot through my entire body, forcing me to stop my racing thoughts. I couldn't help but let out a low groan of agony. Chun-er, you're finally awake. A soft, warm voice cried out next to my ear. Thank goodness. You nearly scared your mother to death. Why were you so foolish? Why did you have to duel that person? The voice started with relief but ended with a sob. I slowly opened my eyes. The world was a blur at first, but as my vision cleared, a woman's face appeared. She looked to be in her 30s and was incredibly beautiful, though deep wrinkles sat at the corners of her eyes, aging her beyond her years. She looked at me with tears in her eyes, her gaze filled with so much love and devotion that a sudden warmth flooded my chest. Child, you terrified me, she whispered, her eyes turning even redder as tears streamed down her face. Mother, I croaked. The word felt familiar yet strange. I looked at her with a mix of confusion and surprise. Her face instantly paled with panic. Child, don't scare me. Do you not even recognize your own mother? An old man appeared beside her. He leaned in and checked my pulse. Madam Long. The young master took a heavy blow to the back of his head. His mind needs time to recover. Don't worry too much. The medicine hasn't fully taken effect yet. It's best to let him rest. Madam Long gave me a worried look and nodded reluctantly. She followed the old man out of the room. As they walked away, I heard the old man whispering to her. Madam Long, it's a miracle the young master even survived this. We can't force things. Her voice trembled. Master Apothecary, you mean my son is? The old man sighed. His brain suffered a severe shock. To be honest, waking up is already a blessing. But the after-effects are serious. Memory loss is to be expected. Their voices faded as they walked further down the hall, leaving me alone with the sound of my mother's muffled sobbing. I stared at the ceiling, feeling the throbbing pain in my skull. What was going on? I was Long Chun. Madam Long was my mother. So why did I feel so detached from her? Where did these chaotic memories come from? One moment, I felt like a supreme, powerful figure. The next, I was a pathetic, bullied loser. Pill God Long Chun. Loser Long Chun. Which one was the real me? Was it a pill god reincarnating into a new body, or was a loser merging with a god's soul? I shook my head. It didn't matter. Regardless of the truth, I was Long Chun now. Loser or god, the most important thing was that I was alive. The memories had merged, and there was no point in overthinking a stupid question. I needed to heal. I scanned my body. It was a wreck. Multiple fractures, 3 broken ribs, and my left arm was snapped in 2 places. The back of my skull was even partially caved in. Someone had been incredibly ruthless. I tried to gather energy, but I couldn't. However, I noticed something strange. My soul power was incredibly strong. I could actually sense everything within a 30-foot radius. In my jumbled memories, I knew soul power was precious, especially for an alchemist. This was a massive win. Whether I was a reincarnated god or just a guy who inherited a god's memories, I had hit the jackpot. I had the soul of a peerless powerhouse. But as I continued my internal inspection, my face went pale. My spirit root was gone. There was a hole in my chest where my spirit bone should have been. Even my spirit blood was missing. Someone had stolen everything. My root, my bone, my blood, all stripped away. No wonder I couldn't cultivate. Rage boiled in my gut. With my powerful soul, I could see the truth of my uselessness clearly. The spirit root is the foundation of cultivation. Without it, you can't sense the world's energy. Spirit blood is a trace of innate power everyone is born with. But the spirit bone? That's different. Only 1 in 10,000 people has a spirit bone. It's the mark of a supreme genius. The gap in my chest was a jagged scar. Someone had literally dug it out of me. They hadn't just wanted to kill me. They wanted to make me suffer a fate worse than death. I hope I never find out who did this, I hissed through gritted teeth. Because if I do, they're dead. Just then, the door creaked open. A pretty young girl about 13 years old walked in. It was Bauer, my personal maid. Young master, it's time for your medicine, she said softly. I sniffed the air. My nose twitched. Medicine? What kind of medicine is that? Madam spent a fortune to get this tiger bone pill. Bauer replied, opening a small, exquisite box. It's supposed to heal your external injuries quickly. They say it was made by Grandmaster Yin Qi. It's very powerful. Please, let me help you take it. I looked at the pill in her hand, and my expression turned weird. This thing was supposed to be a pill? It was lumpy and uneven, looking more like a misshapen meatball. And the color? It was a dull, pitch-black mess with zero luster. If it didn't have a faint medicinal scent, I would have guessed it was a piece of goat dung. I sighed. To waste 80% of a pill's medicinal properties took a special kind of talent. I wondered how this Grandmaster managed to be so bad at his job. Pills are ranked into 5 grades: low, middle, high, top, and peerless. This thing didn't even make the list. It was a waste pill. A failure. Usually, an alchemist would be too embarrassed to sell something like this. They'd either recycle it or throw it away. Young master, don't just stare at it, Bauer urged. Madam sold her jewelry just to buy this precious pill. Please swallow it quickly. A sharp pang of guilt stabbed through my chest. My mother loved me more than anything. In my memories, she spoiled me to a fault, never refusing me a single thing I asked for. She had spent her life worrying about me. Back in her youth, Madame Long was a legendary beauty, and even though she was only in her 30s, the deep wrinkles at the corners of her eyes told the story of her sacrifice. She had given everything for me. I looked down at the pill in my hand. It was a piece of junk, but the raw ingredients used to make it weren't bad. Even with 80% impurities, it was more than enough to heal my physical wounds. I swallowed the pill and turned to Bauer. Don't tell anyone I'm awake, I told her firmly. Not even my mother. Bauer looked confused, but she trusted me. She nodded obediently. I couldn't use cultivation to refine the medicine yet, but I used my powerful soul force to guide the energy directly to my injuries. The healing was instant and intense. By the next morning, I opened my eyes and felt a smile tugging at my lips. I stretched my limbs, hearing my joints pop. The pill was garbage, but the quality of the herbs had been top-notch. Aside from the back of my head, most of my injuries were gone. I walked over to the mirror. A handsome, spirited young man with sharp eyes stared back at me. From today on, I whispered to my reflection, I am not the old Lin Yuan. I am going to rise. I was still a bit weak, but I could walk. I stepped out of my room just as the sun was beginning to climb. After thinking for half an hour, I called Bauer over and handed her a list of herbs to buy. She hesitated, her face pale with embarrassment. I realized the problem immediately. The Long family was broke. Bauer couldn't get money from the treasury anymore. My mother had already sold her jewelry, her wedding dowry, just to get that one failed pill. We were living in ruins. I reached into my pocket and found 80 silver coins. It wasn't much, but it was enough for these basic herbs. Bauer was fast. She was back in less than an hour. I got to work right away, mixing the herbs in specific ratios and boiling them in a clay pot. 3 hours later, a thick, fragrant medicinal broth was ready. I looked at the cheap liquid and grinned. My rise to power would start with this single bowl of soup. I gulped it down. I immediately used my will to guide the liquid, spreading the energy through my limbs and bones. Normally, a martial artist would absorb medicine into their dantian and then distribute it. But I had no spirit root. My dantian was an empty void that couldn't hold energy. I had to force the power into every single cell of my body instead. As the medicine surged through me, my pores began to open. Every cell felt like a drowning person suddenly finding air, frantically sucking in the spiritual energy from the world around me. Boom! A muffled explosion echoed inside me. My blocked meridians were forcibly blown open. I groaned, gritting my teeth against the agony. Other people cultivated by using the breath in their dantian to gently open their paths. It was a slow, painless process. I didn't have that luxury. I had to use external energy like a tidal wave crashing through a narrow riverbed. The pain was savage. I'll remember this pain, I hissed through clenched teeth. If someone hadn't stolen my spirit root, I wouldn't have to resort to such suicidal methods. Bang, bang, bang. More explosions rocked my body as my meridians snapped open one by one. Each one felt like being stabbed, By the time the last path was cleared, I nearly blacked out. I laid there for an hour just trying to breathe. When the pain finally faded, I felt incredible. Every pore was open, and with every breath, I could feel the invisible spiritual energy of the world being absorbed into my skin. My meridians were open. I could finally cultivate. I stood up and threw a punch. The air hissed with the force of it. I smiled. The pain had been worth it. Most people had to spend months sensing energy before they could even begin gathering it. I had skipped the line entirely. By forcing my pores open, I had jumped straight into the chi-gathering realm, at least in terms of physical strength. Since I still had no dantian to store the energy, I couldn't fight for long, but it was a start. I searched through the alchemical memories in my head until I found a single martial technique, the 9-star hegemon body art. My heart raced. It was perfect for me. It didn't focus on the dantian. It focused on 9 secret stars within the human body. Opening a star was like creating a second dantian. But then, my excitement died. To condense the first star, the Feng Fu star, I needed a staggering amount of energy. Absorbing it naturally would take 100 years. I needed pills. Massive, terrifying amounts of high-quality pills. And we were broke. I couldn't rely on the family's money. I needed to find a way to get rich, and fast. I changed my clothes and walked out of the house. It was midday, but the vast Marquis estate was eerily quiet. My father, the Marquis of Jinyuan, was always away at the border. For years, my mother and I had endured the cold stares and insults of the capital. We had the title, but we were living like peasants. We only had a dozen servants because we couldn't afford to feed any more. I was the poorest noble in the entire empire. In the Fengming Empire, everyone practiced martial arts. Because I was born a waste who couldn't cultivate, I was the city's favorite joke. It didn't help that my father was a god of war, a man so powerful the barbarians couldn't even cross the border. People loved to say the tiger had fathered a dog. I never cared about the insults. But a few days ago, Zhao Yaoyang, the son of Marquis Manhwa, had crossed the line. He told me to my face that I wasn't actually my father's son, that I was a bastard. That was why I had fought him. That was why I had almost died. Zhao Yaoyang hadn't just insulted me. He had insulted my mother's honor, implying she was unfaithful. In my blind rage, I had challenged him to a duel. It was a suicide mission. He was a powerhouse at the 7th level of chi transformation, and I was just a normal guy who couldn't even feel a spark of energy. I got what I deserved, a brutal beating that left me unconscious for days. Now, I was the laughingstock of the capital. I walked out of the Marquis estate and headed straight for the 100 Herb Hall. I needed to check the prices of medicinal ingredients. If I wanted to cultivate the 9-star hegemon body art, I needed money. Lots of it. People whispered and pointed as I passed. I was used to it, but a cold bitterness grew in my chest. My father was at the border, sacrificing everything to protect the empire. And yet, the people he protected treated his wife and son like trash. This was his reward. This was our life. I quickened my pace. I didn't fear their stares, but they were annoying. Suddenly, someone blocked my path. Well, if it isn't the young master Long Chun, a voice sneered. I heard you got beaten so badly, you couldn't recognize your own mother. How are you hopping around so soon? A teenager around 16 or 17 stood there, dressed in expensive silks, flanked by 2 guards. His name was Li Hao. He was from a noble family too, though his rank was far below mine. In this empire, however, rank meant nothing without strength. Li Hao stood right in the middle of the road. Usually, the old Long Chun would have lowered his head and walked around him. Not today. I looked at him and sighed. They say a good dog doesn't block the way. I guess you aren't a very good dog. Li Hao's face turned red. Long Chun, did you not learn your lesson? Do you want to be thrown off a stage half dead again? Like I said, you're just a dog, I replied calmly. You're only fit to eat the scraps Zhou Yaoyang leaves behind. I tried to push past him. I had work to do and didn't want to waste time on a lackey. You're looking for death, Li Hao roared. He couldn't believe I was standing up to him. He reached out to grab me, but a massive shadow suddenly loomed over us. Li Hao, you're the one looking for death, a booming voice shouted. Who do you think you are, threatening my brother? A giant of a man stepped forward. He was nearly 9 feet tall and built like a tower. This was Shifeng. He was at the 8th level of Qi transformation and possessed incredible natural strength. He was also the only person in the capital who truly treated me like a brother. Shifeng, this is none of your business, Li Hao stammered, his bravado fading. He was only at the 3rd level of Qi transformation. He didn't have the guts to challenge a monster like Shifeng. Long Chun, I heard about what that bastard Zhou Yaoyang did, Shifeng said, his face red with anger. Let me go settle the score for you. I felt a wave of warmth in my chest. It's okay, brother. I'll settle my own debts. Don't worry about it. I patted his shoulder and smiled. Shifeng looked skeptical, thinking I was just trying to save face, so he didn't push it. Let's go for a walk, I said, leading him away. Li Hao, realizing we were ignoring him completely, lost his mind. Long Chun, you bastard. If you have the guts, challenge me to a duel. I stopped. My expression went cold. A murderous chill rose in my eyes as I slowly turned around. You want to challenge me? My voice was like ice. Li Hao shivered. Something felt different about me today, but he had already shouted the challenge. If he backed down now, he'd be the joke of the city. He relied on his past experiences of bullying me to push down his fear. That's right. Do you dare? He challenged. Fine, I said, but I want a wager. Li Hao laughed. A wager? Your family can barely afford to eat. What do you have to bet? Your house? Or maybe you'll just be my slave when you lose. I didn't lose my temper. Instead, a cruel smile played on my lips. Shifeng, can I borrow your saber? Take it, Shifeng said. He hesitated for a second. That blade was his prized possession, but he handed it over anyway. I took the weapon and turned back to Li Hao. This saber is made of refined steel. It's worth 8,000 gold coins. Let's call it 5,000. If you win, it's yours. If I win, you owe me 5,000 gold coins. Deal. Li Hao's eyes lit up. That saber was famous. It was easily worth the price. He thought I was an idiot for gambling it away. And what if you lose and your friend here refuses to hand it over? I, Shifeng, always keep my word, my friend growled. Good. Let's go to the arena and sign the contract, Li Hao shouted, grinning. I'm going to knock your teeth out. I remained calm, but my mind was racing. Li Hao was just a pawn for Zhou Yaoyang. I wondered what they were really planning. It didn't matter. Everything would come to light eventually. We headed to the life and death stage on the outskirts of the city. In this empire, martial arts were everything. If two people signed a contract and stepped onto that stage, they could kill each other without any legal consequences. A crowd had already gathered. When they saw me walk up, a roar of whispers broke out. Isn't that Long Chun? Is he back for more? He almost died yesterday. He must have a death wish. Most of these people were wealthy elites who looked down on my father because of his humble beginnings. To them, I was just a waste who didn't deserve my title. As I stepped onto the stone platform, a voice jeered from the crowd. Long Chun, you useless trash. What are you doing here again? What a waste of time, someone shouted from the stands. Who wants to watch a piece of trash fight? Just kill yourself somewhere else and stop bothering us. The crowd of hundreds was ruthless. They hated me. They saw me as a stain on the city's reputation, a useless noble who had outstayed his welcome. I didn't care. I ignored the insults and kept my eyes on Li Hao. In a quiet corner far from the stage, two veiled girls watched me closely. Sister, is that really your fiancé? The younger one asked, her voice laced with disappointment. He looks pathetic. I can't feel a single ripple of spiritual energy from him. Don't remind me. The older girl snapped, her eyes burning with anger. It was my father's idea. He arranged the marriage before we were even born. It makes me sick just thinking about it. I had no idea they were watching. I just stood there, calm and steady. Li Hao gestured to the jeering crowd and smirked. See that, Long Chun? Nobody wants you here. Why don't you just save us the trouble and run your head into a wall? I didn't give him the satisfaction of a response. Dong. The heavy bronze bell rang out, signaling the start of the duel. The crowd went silent instantly. On the life and death stage, one bell meant life, and the next usually meant death. Sister, your fiancé has no cultivation at all, the younger girl whispered, her hand tightening. Li Hao is at the 3rd stage of Qi transformation. Aren't you worried? Why should I be? The older girl huffed, though she secretly gripped a strange silk net in her palm. If he dies, he dies. It's none of my business. The younger girl giggled. If you don't want him, let me have him. He might be useless, but he's definitely handsome. Shut up. You can have him after I break off the engagement. On the stage, I remained as still as water. I wasn't the same desperate boy who had lost yesterday. Li Hao mistook my silence for fear. Staring death in the face has made you quiet, hasn't it? Don't worry. For the sake of that expensive saber, I'll leave you with a breath of life. You talk too much, I said, my voice echoing in the silent arena. Just fight. I have things to do later. The crowd erupted in laughter. They thought I was delusional. Li Hao, what are you waiting for? Kill this arrogant brat. Li Hao's face twisted into a cold grin. He didn't hesitate. He unleashed his full power, his chi surging as he lunged forward. He threw a punch, his form perfect and stylish. Beautiful. The silver wind jade tree strike, someone shouted. In the distance, the two girls scoffed. To them, the move was flashy but hollow. To me, it was a joke. It was full of openings. The punch whistled toward my face. I didn't flinch. I didn't even move my head. He's frozen. He can't even dodge, a spectator mocked. But the mockery died in his throat. Li Hao's fist stopped exactly 3 inches from my nose. His face suddenly turned a deep, sickly purple. While he was focused on his perfect punch, I had stepped in and driven my foot straight into his crotch. The impact was brutal. Li Hao's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He was paralyzed by the sheer agony. He couldn't move, but I could. I grabbed him by the hair, yanked his head down, and drove my knee upward with everything I had. Asterisk crack, 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 asterisk. It was a rhythmic, violent sound. My movements were clean and precise. I smashed my knee into his face 3 times. His nose collapsed, his blood sprayed the stone floor, and his eyes rolled back. He crumpled into a heap, unconscious before he even hit the ground. The entire arena went dead silent. Nobody could believe it. A third-stage chi practitioner had been dismantled by a waste, with no cultivation. It was a slap in the face to everyone who had just been cheering for my death. Even the 2 girls were stunned. Li Hao was nothing to them, but I had defeated him using nothing but raw, Mortal Kombat skills. No chi, just efficiency. Long Chun wins, the old referee announced, his voice trembling slightly. I stood there, my chest heaving. I had to use every ounce of my willpower to suppress the killing intent screaming in my mind. It wasn't the right time to take a life. To the crowd, it just looked like I was exhausted from the effort. I walked off the stage, retrieved the refined steel saber, and collected a gold card worth 5,000 coins. The rules were absolute. Once the bet was placed with the referee, there was no backing out. I handed the saber back to my friend Sherfone and tucked the card into my robe. My heart was racing. 5,000 gold coins wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to save my family. The officials had been cutting our stipends for months, and we were nearly broke. As Sherfone and I walked away under the stunned gazes of the crowd, the 2 girls vanished into the shadows. The news spread through the capital like wildfire. People couldn't wrap their heads around how a useless loser had suddenly become a fighter. But the blood on the stage and Li Hao's broken face were proof enough. Once we were clear of the crowds, I tried to share the winnings with Sherfone, but he refused. He didn't even ask how I'd gotten so strong. He just nodded and headed home, leaving me with the money. I went straight to the 100 Herb Hall. I needed a list of ingredients. I found everything I needed for the Feng Fu pill, but when I saw the prices, my heart bled. 5,000 gold coins sounded like a lot, but it was only enough for 3 sets of ingredients. I still needed a medicinal cauldron and several backup herbs. The money I had won was just a drop in the bucket for what was coming next. But I had to buy them. There was no other way. I gritted my teeth and handed over 1,200 gold coins. That got me a bronze cauldron, the cheapest, lowest quality one they had. I also bought 1 set of ingredients for the Feng Fu pill and a massive amount of herbs for Qi recovery liquid. By the time I walked out of the 100 Herb Hall, my gold card only had 500 coins left. I went straight home, locked myself in my room, and gave Bauer strict orders. No one was allowed to disturb me. I knew my mother would hear about the fight sooner or later, and she'd be worried sick. I hoped Bauer could stall her. Right now, every second counted. I could feel a crisis looming over the Long family, and I needed strength to face it. I sat down and circulated the spiritual energy in my body. A small ball of flame flickered to life in my palm. This was the pill flame, condensed from my own energy using the techniques from my memories. I looked at the tiny, weak spark and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It was pathetic. The temperature was barely higher than a regular campfire. Without a proper dantian to support it, I couldn't keep this flame going for more than 15 minutes. That wasn't nearly enough time to refine a pill. I smiled bitterly. Luckily, I had a backup plan. I didn't start with the Feng Fu pill. Instead, I tossed the herbs for the Qi recovery liquid into the cauldron. I didn't waste my pill flame on these. I just used regular firewood. After hours of work, I had a large jar filled with liquid medicine. I took a short break, took a deep breath, and prepared for the real challenge. It was time to refine the Feng Fu pill. I started with the 9 grass, then the earth dragon root, then the saltberry. There were over 30 different herbs in total. I spent several hours refining them one by one until I was drenched in sweat. Refining a pill isn't like boiling tea. You have to extract the pure essence of every plant, remove the impurities, and turn them into fine powder. My fire was garbage, which meant the powders were full of impurities. I didn't have a choice, though. My cultivation was too low to sustain a powerful flame, and I didn't have the strength to hunt down a fire-type magical beast to steal its beast flame yet. Most alchemists used beast flames. Only the legendary masters could control spirit flames, mysterious, sentient fires born from the heavens and earth. In my memories, I felt like I used to own a god-tier spirit flame. But memories don't help when you're stuck with a flickering yellow spark. I took a deep breath. A pale yellow flame, about half a foot long, jumped from my palm. The heat was slightly better than before. I tossed 7 medicinal essences into the cauldron and unleashed my soul power. Suddenly, the flame roared, growing several times stronger. If another alchemist saw this, they'd probably have a heart attack. Soul power is the most precious thing an alchemist has. It's usually fixed at birth and only grows slowly with cultivation. Most people save it for the final, most delicate stage of refining to prevent the pill from exploding. But here I was, using my precious soul power as extra firewood just to make the flame hotter. It was incredibly wasteful, but I didn't care. My soul had undergone a strange mutation when I woke up in this body. It was massive, stronger than most high-level alchemists. The cauldron vibrated with a soft hum. There we go, I muttered. That's more like it. The heat intensified. I quickly added 3 more herbs. Sweat poured down my face. I grabbed a long straw I prepared, stuck one end into the jar of Qi recovery liquid and the other into my mouth. I took a massive gulp. The liquid hit my stomach, my pores flew open, and I began frantically absorbing spiritual energy from the air to refill my empty tank. I sat there for 2 days, nursing that straw and pumping energy into the cauldron. By the end of the 2nd day, I felt a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. My soul power was finally running low, but the medicinal fragrance was already filling the room. In my past life, I could have made a tier 1 pill like this with my eyes closed. But now, this pill was my entire future. My hands were shaking. The cauldron began to jump and rattle. The energy inside turned violent. I didn't panic. Instead, a smirk touched my lips. This was the pill-forming stage, the most dangerous part. I pushed my soul power to the limit. The flames surged, and I used a secret technique from my memories, Heaven Sealing Lock. A wave of invisible force slammed down, sealing the cauldron shut. It was a move designed to prevent explosions and lock the medicinal power inside so nothing leaked out. Most alchemists used gentle methods to calm the energy down, but I didn't have time for that. I was going to force this pill into existence. The Heaven Sealing Lock worked, but at a cost. Using such a brutal method meant a lot of the medicinal essence leaked out, weakening the final product. Thump! A muffled sound echoed from inside the cauldron as I slammed my soul power down one last time. Then, everything went silent. I stared at the now-still metal pot, my chest heaving. I was drenched in sweat, my vision swimming. My brain felt like it had been scrubbed with sandpaper. I sat there for a long time, just trying to remember how to breathe. Once the world stopped spinning, I reached out. My hands shook as I gripped the lid. I pulled it off, and a thick, rich fragrance instantly filled the room. 5 round pills sat at the bottom. 2 were low-grade. The other 3? Trash pills. Failed attempts. I stared at them and sighed. If anyone from my past life saw this, I'd die of shame. Then I caught myself and laughed. I had the memories of a pill god, sure, but that guy was way too arrogant. I wasn't him, not yet. I was a guy with no dantian trying to survive. I picked them up, examining them closely. The 2 low-grade pills were smooth and radiated a refreshing scent that made my spirit lift just by smelling them. In the capital, a finished pill like this could fetch over 100,000 gold coins. Even the 3 trash pills were better than the junk my mother had spent her life savings on. In the alchemy world, a pill with 50% medicinal essence is considered low-grade. Most alchemists never get past that. 60% is middle grade, 70 is high grade, 80 is top grade, and 90 is peerless. 100%? That was a dream for another day. Some people think there isn't much difference between 50 and 60%. They think eating 2 low-grade pills is better than 1 middle grade. Those people are idiots. Pills contain impurities, toxins that the body can't absorb. These toxins build up in your blood, your bones, and even your soul. Middle-grade pills have 10 times the effect of low-grade ones because they have fewer toxins, which is why they cost 100 times more. I tucked the pills away, cleaned up my mess, and collapsed. I didn't even make it to the bed. I hit the floor and was out cold. I felt a warm hand brushing against my cheek while I slept. I heard a soft, blurred voice whispering to me, but I was too exhausted to open my eyes. When I finally woke up, 3 days had passed. My stomach was screaming. I inhaled a massive meal, then immediately went back into seclusion. It was time. I swallowed one of the trash pills first. I used my soul power to guide the medicinal energy down my leg, straight toward the Yongquan point on the sole of my foot. That was the location of the first star of the 9-star Hegemon body art, the Feng Fu star. Boom. My right foot jerked, and the floor beneath me shattered. Cracks spiderwebbed across the entire room. I smiled. I'd found the path. I'd found the spot. I pulled out a low-grade Feng Fu pill and swallowed it. A surge of pure, violent energy exploded in my throat. I channeled it downward. My Yongquan point felt like a parched desert finally receiving rain. The energy acted like a wild dragon, tearing through the blockages. A massive explosion rocked the room. A wave of terrifying pressure blasted outward, shattering the windows and turning my furniture into splinters. Dust swirled everywhere. As it cleared, I stood in the wreckage, my eyes glowing with excitement. On the sole of my foot, a tiny, bud-like mass had formed. It was the seedling of the Feng Fu star. Endless energy began flowing from that point, circulating through my entire body. I wanted to scream at the sky in triumph. The commotion brought the entire household running. My mother arrived first, looking terrified. "Mom, I'm fine," I shouted before she could ask. "Today's the day the heirs go to the Imperial Academy, right? I have to go." I left them staring at the ruins of my room and ran to change. The Imperial Academy opens its doors to the noble heirs once a month. The morning is for boring poetry and etiquette, but the afternoon? That's when the martial arts library opens for free. In the past, I never went. I was just a target for bullies. But things were different now. I had the seedling of the Feng Fu star. Most people use their meridians like small rivers to store qi, but without a dantian, a sea to hold it all, those rivers run dry. The Feng Fu star was my new dantian. Once it fully matured, I would have my first real power source. The 9-star Hegemon body art is insane. If I can open all 9 stars, I'll basically have 9 dantians. I just needed to keep pushing. Once the Feng Fu star was stable, I could refine my bloodline and step into the blood condensation realm. That's when you become a true cultivator. Right now, I felt stronger than ever. A simple punch sent a whistle of wind through the air that could shatter a vase 5 feet away. I needed battle techniques. I needed to know how to turn this raw energy into a weapon. The Imperial Academy sat on the north side of the capital, a massive complex second only to the palace. I showed my Jade ID at the gate and stepped inside. I wasn't here for poetry. I was here for power. I headed straight for the Hall of Literature. This was where we spent our mornings, listening to old scholars drone on about ancient scriptures, poetry, and etiquette. It was all useless, outdated theory, but it was mandatory. Because I arrived early, the massive hall was mostly empty, with only a few dozen noble heirs scattered around. "Brother Long, you're here," As soon as I stepped inside, a few young men greeted me with genuine warmth. Like the old me, these guys were outcasts. For various reasons, none of them could cultivate. We weren't exactly best friends, but we shared the same pain. In the Phoenix Cry Empire, where martial prowess was everything, they were constantly mocked and looked down upon. They hadn't been bullied quite as badly as I had, but they knew what it felt like to be treated as trash. They were thrilled to see me after my long absence. "You guys are here pretty early," I said, smiling back. With the Feng Fu star successfully condensed, my mood was great. The gloom that usually hung over me had vanished, replaced by a sharp, confident energy. "We heard about what happened a few days ago," a lean young man said, his eyes full of envy. "Brother Long, you showed incredible power by defeating Li Hao. Does this mean you can finally cultivate?" They used to be on the same level as me. Hearing that I had taken down Li Hao, who was at the third stage of Qi transformation, shocked them. They were happy for me, but I could see the longing in their eyes. It was mostly luck," I replied, not wanting to dive into the details of my cultivation just yet. I leaned in and whispered mysteriously, "Actually, it's because I recently mastered a divine skill." "A divine skill? What is it?" Their curiosity was instantly piqued, and the topic shifted exactly where I wanted it. "I've been studying an ancient book on physiognomy, the art of reading faces," I said with a hint of pride. "I've become quite the expert." "Face reading? Isn't that just something street scammers do?" one of them asked. "That's where you're wrong," I countered. The other day, I looked at Li Hao and saw his forehead was shadowed with dark energy. His brows were cold and sharp. It was a clear omen of disaster. That's why I agreed to the duel. And the result? I let out a knowing chuckle and stayed silent. The group looked skeptical, but then one of them spoke up, his eyes widening. "Wait, I think he's telling the truth. I heard that during the fight, Li Hao acted like he was possessed. He couldn't use any of his combat strength at all before Brother Long crushed him." Everyone had heard rumors about the duel, and most found Li Hao's loss baffling. Now that I provided a supernatural explanation, they started to believe me. "Brother Long," one guy said, looking troubled, "since you're an expert, can you look at my face? My fiancé keeps avoiding me and refuses to meet. What's going on?" "No problem," I said. "Let's find a place to sit first." We moved to a corner table piled with snacks for the nobles. I pointed at a plate of pastries and smiled at the guy. "Have a piece." "Don't mind if I do," he said, grabbing a pastry and wolfing it down. The others watched us, confused. "How does it taste?" I asked. "Great. Want another one?" "Sure." He grabbed a second one and took a huge bite. Suddenly, he paused, a look of realization dawning on his face. He bowed to me respectfully. "Thank you for the guidance, Brother Long. I understand now. You're reminding me to be content with what I have, right?" The others looked at me with deep respect. They thought I was being profound, using a simple snack to teach a life lesson. I sighed and shook my head. "You're wrong. What I'm trying to tell you is that you're already fat as a pig, yet you're still stuffing your face. You're so wide you can barely fit through a door. Your fiancée is only hiding from you. The fact that she hasn't canceled the engagement yet is an act of supreme mercy. With your physique, any woman sleeping next to you would be terrified of you rolling over and crushing her to death." The guy's face turned bright red. He looked down at his 5-foot-tall, 4.5-foot-wide body. He finally realized he might be a little more than stout. "Fatty you, stop wasting Brother Long's time and go lose some weight," the lean man laughed. Then he turned to me. "Brother Long, what about me? How's my face look?" I looked at him with great solemnity. After a long silence, I spoke. "Your face tells me that you are destined to be penniless and miserable until the age of 30. The man's face lit up. "And after 30? Will I finally become rich and successful?" "No," I said. "After 30, you'll just be used to it." The group burst into laughter. But the laughter died instantly when a pair of venomous eyes locked onto us from across the hall. I had sensed him long ago. I turned around to see Li Hao staring at me, his gaze like two sharp blades. "Well, if it isn't the great heir Li," I said, my voice dripping with concern. "I see your wounds have healed. Truly a cause for celebration. But tell me, the wounds on top are gone, but how are the ones down below?" Li Hao's face twitched. When he was carried back to his estate, his face had been smashed flat by my knee. His family had spent a fortune on alchemists to restore his looks. Money could buy a lot, and he looked normal again. But at my mention of down below, he winced as if hit by a phantom pain. My kick had been brutal. I had nearly ruined him. Later, his family realized one of his stones was missing. They rushed back to the arena to find it, but it was gone. Rumor had it a stray dog had made off with it. When Li Hao woke up to that news, he almost died of pure rage. Even the best alchemists couldn't grow back what was gone. He walked fine, but being asymmetrical made him feel like a freak. Long Chun, he hissed, his teeth grinding. You bastard. I challenge you to a life and death duel. Do you dare accept? My smile vanished. That word, bastard, was a direct insult to my mother. Some people just don't know when to stop. If he was so eager to leave this world, I was happy to help him along. Since you want to die so badly, I'll fulfill your wish, I said, staring him down. But the same rule applies. We're betting stakes. Your death should at least have some value. Fine, Li Hao barked, a cold sneer forming on his lips. I don't care how much you want to bet. I accept. In his mind, it didn't matter how much I won if I wasn't alive to spend it. He believed he had only lost last time because he was careless. This time would be different. This was a life and death duel. In a normal match, if someone surrendered, the fight ended. In a life and death duel, you put your life on the line. Even if you begged for mercy, the winner had total control over whether you lived or died. Good. Tomorrow at noon, we meet at the life and death stage, Li Hao said, looking at me as if I were already a corpse. I felt a cold thrill. It was time to kill a chicken to warn the monkeys. As Li Hao turned to leave, I gave him one last wicked grin. Watch your balance when you walk, I called out. Don't want you tipping over now that you're a bit lopsided. Li Hao froze in his tracks. His back stiffened, and I could practically feel his face twisting in rage. He knew exactly what I meant. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to ignore me, and started walking toward the other side of the literary hall. But my words were like steel needles, pricking him right where it hurt. I watched him go, and it was a pathetic sight. He was trying so hard to act like nothing was wrong, but the more he tried to walk naturally, the more he looked like a waddling duck. Everyone in the hall stared at him with strange expressions. Brother Long, someone whispered beside me. It was one of the other noble heirs. Why did you agree to that? That's a life and death duel. People actually die in those. I shrugged, watching Li Hao disappear. Don't worry about it. I looked at his face today. There's a dark shadow over his brow and the scent of death hanging around him. It's the look of a man whose soul is already being claimed. He won't live past the day after tomorrow. I turned to the group of heirs standing with me. Actually, I have a favor to ask. I need your help with something. I leaned in and whispered a plan. They looked at each other, eyes wide, hesitant at first. Finally, the one we called Fatty gritted his teeth. Brother Long, since you're the one asking, take everything I've got. He pulled out a gold card and handed it to me. I was stunned. I checked the balance, 80,000 gold coins. These guys were all sons of marquises or dukes, but most were from side branches of their families. They weren't high-ranking or well-funded. For Fatty, 80,000 was a massive fortune. Damn it, I've got 60,000 here. Take it, another shouted. I only have 30,000, a third added, looking a bit embarrassed. That's all I can manage, Brother Long. I originally thought I might be able to borrow maybe 10,000 from the whole lot of them. I never expected them to empty their pockets for me. Are you sure? I asked, looking at the pile of gold cards in my hand. If I die in that ring, your money is gone. It'll be like throwing it into the ocean. Do you think so little of us? One of them snapped. We can't cultivate. We spend every day getting bullied and looked down on by people like Li Hao. But you're actually willing to fight them to the death. We might not have your guts, but the least we can do is back you up with some cash. I nodded, feeling a genuine surge of respect for them. I wouldn't forget this. With over 200,000 gold coins in my pocket now, I could finally make some real moves. Just then, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the hall. A group of people walked in, and the chatter in the room died instantly. Silence fell like a heavy blanket. I looked toward the entrance, and my blood ran cold. A crowd of students walked in, surrounding one man like he was a king. He was handsome, tall, and carried himself with an effortless grace. It was Zhou Yaoyang. He was the son of the Marquis of Manhwa, and more importantly, he was the one who had nearly beaten me to death on the arena stage not long ago. He was a top-tier cultivator among the heirs, powerful and popular. Zhao Yaoyang spotted us and walked over with a thin smile. Long Chun, about last time. I'm truly sorry. I didn't mean to beat you so badly that your own mother wouldn't recognize you. The words were an apology, but his face told a different story. He looked at me with pure disdain, like a god looking down at an ant. It's fine, I said, matching his smile with a calm one of my own. Soon, I'll return the favor. I'll hit you so hard your own grandmother won't recognize you. Inside, I was fuming. When I had woken up after that beating, only my mother and that old alchemist were there. The mother wouldn't recognize you. Comment must have come from that old man. It confirmed my suspicion. The alchemist was in their pocket. They had used my injuries to scare my mother into spending every cent she had on useless medicine. They didn't want to kill me. They wanted to bankrupt my family and leave us in the dirt. Long Chun, you're looking for death, one of Zhao Yaoyang's lackeys barked. Did you forget the pain already? Do you want Brother Yaoyang to turn you into a corpse this time? Exactly. A trashy waste who can't even cultivate, talking big? It's an insult that we even have to share a title with you. Zhao Yaoyang didn't say a word. He just raised a single finger and pointed it right at my nose, his eyes cold. Long Chun, we might both be heirs, but I am the sky and you are the dirt. You are a maggot. When I bully you, you endure it. Otherwise, I'll turn you into a dead dog again. I smiled. Then, before anyone could blink, I reached out and grabbed that pointing finger. I twisted. Hard. A loud crack echoed through the hall. Zhao Yaoyang let out a pathetic shriek as the pain surged through him. Since his finger was caught, he was forced to drop to his knees to keep it from snapping off entirely. He was a level 7 Qi transformation cultivator, but until you reached the blood condensation realm, your physical body was still mostly human. I had caught him by surprise. Without time to circulate his qi to defend himself, he was just as vulnerable as anyone else. I looked down at his contorted, sweaty face. The sky looking down on the dirt? Is that what you said? The hall went into a frenzy. Zhao Yaoyang's followers finally snapped out of their shock and lunged at me. Bastard! Let him go. I was ready to move, but suddenly, a massive shadow stepped beside me. A thunderous roar shook the room. Who dares step forward? It was Shifeng. The heirs who were about to charge stopped dead. Shifeng was a loner, but he was also the strongest cultivator among the students. His sheer presence was enough to freeze the entire room. The only sound left was Zhao Yaoyang's muffled groans of pain. What is going on here? An angry voice boomed. An old man walked in, his face set in a stern scowl. It was the hall's instructor, a strict Confucian scholar known for being incorruptible and terrifyingly humorless. Fighting in the literary hall carried a penalty of 1 month in solitary confinement. I thought fast. I let go of Zhao Yaoyang's mangled finger and turned to the instructor with a bright, innocent smile. Sir, you've misunderstood. We weren't fighting. We were just performing a test. The old man squinted at me, clearly not buying it. A test? What kind of test? We were testing the strength of a single finger, I explained smoothly. We wanted to see how long one finger could hold out against the combined pressure of 5 others. From this experiment, we reached a profound conclusion. The power of unity is unstoppable. No matter how strong a single finger is, it is isolated. It only finds true strength and endurance when supported by its fellows. Through this little test, I explained that both Zhao Yaoyang and I had gained a profound new understanding of power. I told the instructor it would be a massive help to our future cultivation. We had truly benefited beyond words. I turned my gaze toward Zhao Yaoyang, looking at him with deep, mocking intent. Brother Zhao, I said softly, wouldn't you agree? Zhao Yaoyang looked like he was about to faint from pure rage. His face was pale and his eyes were bulging. But he wasn't stupid. He knew he had to swallow this bitter pill. If he denied my story, the instructor would haul us both off to solitary confinement immediately. In the literary hall, even a prince's son had to follow the rules. He had to play along or face the consequences. Yes, he finally forced out. He tried to keep his voice steady, but the lingering agony made it come out as a harsh, dry rasp. It sounded like rusted iron scraping against a stone.